Imagine growing up in a world where love is not given freely, where affection is conditional, and emotional warmth feels like a rare luxury. Think of the quiet pain of a child who learns early on that their feelings don't matter, that their tears are inconvenient and their needs are too much. Now imagine that same child growing up, entering adulthood, trying to build relationships, pursue dreams, and understand themselves, all while carrying an invisible wound that never truly healed. Today we're diving deep into one of the most profound and often misunderstood topics in psychology, the lifelong effect of not being loved in childhood. And stay with me until the very end, because the last insight, the final realization we'll uncover together, might change how you see not only your past, but the way you choose to love and heal in the present. Before we continue, if you believe that exploring the depths of the human mind and uncovering the roots of our emotional lives can bring real transformation, make sure to subscribe to this channel, leave a like, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. What we're about to discuss might not just inform you, it might awaken something inside you. When we speak about the absence of love in childhood, we're not just referring to cases of overt abuse or neglect. Often the deepest scars are formed in silence, in the moments when love was withheld, when affection was rationed, when emotional needs were met with indifference. The psychologist John Bowlby, father of attachment theory, wrote that a child's experience of an emotionally responsive caregiver is essential for building a secure base. Without that base, the world becomes unpredictable, relationships become threatening, and the self becomes fragmented. A child who grows up without love does not stop needing it, they simply learn to hide that need. They may become the independent one, the strong one, the one who never asks for help. But beneath that strength lies a desperate craving, the longing to be seen, to be accepted without conditions. Many adults who grew up without love describe feeling like outsiders in their own lives, as if they're constantly performing roles, wearing masks, afraid that their real self is unworthy of affection. Think about it. How many people do you know who struggle with self-doubt, who sabotage relationships, who can't fully trust even when love is offered to them? These patterns rarely appear out of nowhere. They are echoes of the emotional deprivation that shaped their earliest years. The psychiatrist Alice Miller called it the drama of the gifted child, the child who learns to be perfect, helpful, or invisible just to survive emotionally in an unloving environment. The absence of love in childhood leaves its fingerprints on every stage of life. In adolescence, it may appear as rebellion or withdrawal. In adulthood, it may manifest as chronic anxiety, emotional detachment, or a constant search for validation. And in later years, it often becomes a quiet emptiness, a sense that something essential was missing all along, even if the person can't quite name what it was. But here's the paradox. The human psyche, though fragile, is also incredibly resilient. The child who wasn't loved learns to adapt, and sometimes those adaptations become sources of strength. The same sensitivity that once caused pain can become empathy. The same independence that was born of neglect can turn into self-reliance. Yet if unexamined, these strengths can also become barriers, preventing real intimacy and authentic connection. Ask yourself, how much of who you are today was shaped not by what you received, but by what you lacked? How many of your choices, fears, or patterns trace back to that early hunger for love that was never fully satisfied? Modern psychology has shown that early attachment experiences literally shape the architecture of the brain. Studies from the University of Wisconsin and Harvard Medical School have revealed that children who experience emotional neglect often show differences in the development of their stress regulation systems, meaning their brains remain wired for survival, always scanning for danger even in safe situations. In other words, the body remembers the absence of love as if it were a constant threat. And yet, despite the deep and lasting imprint of childhood emotional deprivation, there's another truth, one we'll explore later in this video. Healing is possible. The past may shape us, but it does not have to define us. For now, reflect on this. Every unloved child grows up carrying an invisible story, a story written in silence, in small rejections, in the absence of warmth. But within that story also lies the seed of transformation. Because to recognize the wound is to begin the process of awakening. So stay with me. In the next part, we'll uncover how the lack of love in childhood shapes our adult relationships, how it affects the way we love, the way we trust, and the way we see ourselves. And eventually we'll reach something even more powerful, the truth about how to heal that wound and reclaim the love we never received. When a child grows up without love, they learn a silent lesson about the world and about themselves. The lesson is this: I must earn love. Every action, every achievement, every sacrifice becomes a way to prove worthiness. But love, when it must be earned, ceases to be love. It becomes performance. And so begins a lifelong play, where the adult wears the mask of competence, kindness, or perfection, all in the desperate hope that someone, finally, will say, "You are enough." This is why so many adults who were unloved as children struggle in relationships. Their hearts yearn for closeness, yet the idea of being truly vulnerable feels dangerous. Deep down, love and fear have become intertwined. The very thing they crave, intimacy, is also what they subconsciously avoid. It's not that they don't want love, it's that love was once associated with pain, rejection, or abandonment. Psychologist D.W. Winnicott once wrote that, "It is a joy to be hidden, but a disaster not to be found." Many people who lacked love in childhood hide behind emotional walls. They have learned to survive by not needing too much, by not expecting others to care. They become masters of self-sufficiency, but this independence is often a defense, not a choice. Beneath it lies a deep loneliness, a quiet hope that someone might still notice the real them beneath the armor. You might have felt this yourself. The hesitation to open up, the urge to pull away when someone gets too close, or the quiet panic that arises when love feels too real. These reactions are not flaws. They are protective patterns formed in childhood, when love was unsafe or unavailable. But they persist, silently shaping the way we connect, even decades later. The neuroscientist Bruce Perry explains that the brain is a social organ, wired to connect and to mirror emotional attunement. When a child grows up without consistent affection, the brain's expectation of human connection becomes distorted. It anticipates rejection rather than acceptance, indifference rather than care. This means that, even in adulthood, genuine affection can feel unfamiliar, almost foreign. Consider the adult who constantly seeks validation, from a partner, a boss, or the online world. Each compliment, each like, each sign of approval becomes a substitute for the love they never received. But like drinking salt water to quench thirst, external validation never satisfies. It only deepens the longing. Others take the opposite path. They reject love before it has the chance to reject them. They end relationships early, push people away, or numb their emotions entirely. To them, detachment feels safer than disappointment. It's easier to be alone by choice than to risk being abandoned again. But this safety is an illusion. The more they avoid love, the more distant they become from themselves. It's a tragic paradox. The very people most in need of love are often those least able to accept it. Their hearts were trained to believe that love is conditional, unreliable, or dangerous. So they test it, they question it, they wait for it to disappear, and in doing so, sometimes make it disappear. If you've ever wondered why you repeat painful relationship patterns, or why love seems to slip away even when it's within reach, this may be why. The child within you still fears the pain of being unloved, and so it builds walls to stay safe. But those walls, once protective, become prisons. And yet there is another truth, one that psychology and neuroscience increasingly affirm. The human brain can change. The wounds of emotional neglect can be healed through new experiences of love, empathy, and connection. What was once broken can be rewired. As the psychologist Daniel Siegel describes, integration is the essence of mental health. When we begin to integrate our story, to face the parts of ourselves that were ignored, silenced, or unloved, we start to become whole. So how do we begin that process? The first step is awareness. To stop pretending that the past didn't affect us. To recognize the patterns, the fears, and the defenses for what they are, not weaknesses, but adaptations. Every coping mechanism you developed was a brilliant strategy to survive. But what helped you survive then may be what keeps you from living fully now. Ask yourself, what kind of love did I receive as a child? Was it conditional, dependent on behavior, obedience, or achievement, or was it absent altogether? And how has that shaped the way I give and receive love today? Many who lacked love as children unknowingly seek out relationships that recreate the same emotional absence. They are drawn to partners who are distant or unavailable, not because they want pain, but because familiarity feels safe, even when it hurts. Healing begins when we realize that what is familiar is not always what is right. In a world that often glorifies independence, we forget that emotional connection is not a weakness. It's a biological necessity. The absence of love in childhood teaches us to distrust that need, but it never erases it. It only buries it deeper. And here's the remarkable thing. Even if you were not loved as you should have been, you still have the capacity to love, deeply, fiercely, unconditionally. But to do so, you must first learn to offer that love to yourself. In the next part, we'll explore how to begin that journey, how self-compassion, awareness, and reparenting can help you heal the wounds left by an unloving childhood. And most importantly, we'll uncover how love, even when lost early, can be rediscovered and rebuilt from within. Healing from the absence of love is not a simple journey. It is a process of rediscovery. It begins with acknowledging that the child you once were deserved love, even if they never received it. For many, this is the hardest truth to accept, because to admit that we were unloved means confronting years of pain, denial, and confusion. Yet, it's also the doorway to freedom. Psychologist Carl Rogers once said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." Those who were not loved in childhood often grow up believing that something is wrong with them, that if they were smarter, quieter, or more obedient, they would have been loved. But the absence of love is never the fault of the child. It is the failure of those who could not give what they themselves never learned to give. To heal, we must first stop blaming ourselves for the love we didn't receive. This is the first act of self-compassion, to recognize that our worth was never dependent on the affection or approval of others. It simply is. Self-compassion, as defined by researcher Kristin Neff, is not about self-pity or indulgence. It's about treating yourself with the same understanding you would offer a loved one in pain. It's looking at your own wounds and saying, "It's okay, you did your best with what you had." When we begin to extend love inward, something remarkable happens. The old neural pathways of fear and rejection start to weaken, and new ones form in their place. This is what neuroscientists call neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize and heal through new experiences. But emotional healing requires more than just understanding. It requires re-experiencing safety. The unloved child within us must slowly learn that love can exist without pain, that connection does not always end in abandonment. This is where the concept of reparenting becomes powerful. Reparenting means becoming the caregiver you never had. It means showing up for yourself, consistently, kindly, and without judgment. When fear arises, you soothe it. When loneliness comes, you stay present. When you fail, you offer forgiveness. Over time, these small acts of emotional care begin to rebuild the foundation that was missing all along: trust. Ask yourself, what would I have needed to hear as a child? What words could have healed me then? Now try whispering those same words to yourself today. Because the truth is, the inner child never disappears. They live within us, influencing our decisions, our relationships, and even our sense of identity. When ignored, they cry out through anxiety, anger, or self-sabotage. When acknowledged, they become our greatest source of wisdom, creativity, and authenticity. Many spiritual traditions echo this psychological truth. The Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh spoke of embracing your inner child with mindfulness and tenderness. He said that when we cradle our pain instead of rejecting it, it transforms. Love, when directed inward, begins to heal the fractures of the past. But let's be honest, this isn't an easy path. Sometimes the wounds of childhood feel like ghosts that return again and again. You might feel progress one day, only to find yourself trapped in old emotions the next. This does not mean you're failing. It means you're healing. Healing is not linear. It's a spiral where we revisit the same lessons with deeper understanding each time. And here's something essential to remember. Healing doesn't require that you confront those who hurt you. You do not need their apology or validation to be free. Closure doesn't always come from others. It comes from within, when you finally choose to stop carrying the weight of what they could not give. You can learn to love without waiting for permission. You can become the source of love that was once denied to you. Modern research in psychotherapy supports this. Studies on attachment repair, particularly by Dr. Sue Johnson and Dr. Peter Levine, show that new experiences of connection, whether through therapy, friendship, or self-compassion, can literally rewire emotional memory. The nervous system, once conditioned by fear, can learn to feel safe again. So, what does that look like in daily life? It means learning to trust your emotions rather than suppress them. It means surrounding yourself with people who make you feel seen and valued. It means choosing vulnerability, even when it scares you, because vulnerability is the bridge through which love can finally enter. You might still carry moments of sadness when you realize what was missing. That's natural. But sadness too can become sacred, a reminder that your heart still longs, still feels, still hopes. It means that despite everything, your capacity for love survived. And that is extraordinary. Think about it. If your heart can still love even after being deprived of it, then it is not broken. It is resilient. Perhaps that is the greatest proof of the human spirit's power. The journey of healing from an unloving childhood is not about erasing the past, but about rewriting its meaning. You cannot change what happened, but you can change what it means to you now. You can choose to let your pain become purpose, your scars become strength, and your story become light for others who walk the same dark path. In the next part, we'll explore the final and most powerful revelation, how love, even when absent early in life, can become the very force that defines your destiny. We'll uncover how the deepest wound can become the source of the deepest wisdom, and how to finally live free, not as the child who wasn't loved, but as the adult who chooses love consciously, courageously, and unconditionally. To heal from not being loved in childhood is to rewrite the meaning of love itself. It's not about forgetting the pain or pretending it didn't matter. It's about transforming that pain into understanding. The absence of love becomes the teacher that reveals what love truly is. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." The chaos of an unloved childhood, the confusion, the longing, the silence, can, when understood, give rise to something luminous, the ability to love consciously, not out of need or fear, but out of awareness. When you begin to love with awareness, you no longer chase approval. You no longer beg to be seen. You become the observer of your own emotions, realizing that what you once sought from others can now be cultivated within. True love, you see, begins not in romance, not in family, not in others, but in the space where you finally meet yourself. Imagine looking into a mirror and seeing not the wounded child, not the person defined by rejection, but the being who survived it all, the one who kept moving, who kept feeling, who kept hoping. That reflection is not broken. It's evidence of extraordinary strength. Many who lacked love in childhood grow into adults who love with remarkable intensity. They love deeply because they know what it means to live without it. They are often the healers, the artists, the empaths, people whose sensitivity allows them to touch the lives of others in ways that those who were never deprived may never understand. The wound becomes the portal. It teaches compassion. It awakens wisdom. It reveals that love is not something to be earned, but something that flows naturally when fear dissolves. Think of the human heart as a vessel. When it has been cracked by pain, the light can finally enter. The poet Leonard Cohen said it beautifully. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. To those who were not loved as children, know this: you were never unlovable. You were simply surrounded by people who could not yet love beyond their own wounds. Their inability to give love says nothing about your worth and everything about their pain. You are not what was withheld from you. You are what you choose to give now. The greatest act of rebellion against a loveless past is to love freely in the present. Love becomes your revolution. Not the naive love that expects to be completed, but the mature love that arises from completeness. When you begin to live from this place, relationships transform. You no longer seek someone to fill your emptiness. You seek someone to share your fullness. You no longer fear rejection because you no longer reject yourself. And something extraordinary happens. The world begins to mirror the love you've cultivated within. People who see you, understand you, and resonate with your truth begin to appear, because energy recognizes energy. Love, when genuine, attracts love. But let's go even deeper. The spiritual dimension of this journey reveals a profound truth. Even in the moments when love was absent, you were never truly alone. Life itself, the breath moving through you, the sun that rose each morning, the invisible current that sustained you, was an act of love. Existence carried you even when people did not. The universe, in its quiet way, has always loved you. When you understand this, forgiveness becomes possible, not necessarily for others, but for yourself. You forgive yourself for believing you were unworthy, for repeating old patterns, for staying too long in pain. You forgive because you finally see that you were only ever trying to find love in the ways you knew how. And now, you know a better way. Love is not a reward. It is a state of being. It is presence, awareness, acceptance. It is the courage to open your heart even after it has been broken, to extend kindness where bitterness once lived, to choose connection over defense. This is the final truth, the one we promised at the beginning of this journey. The absence of love in childhood does not define your destiny. It defines your mission. You are here to end the cycle. You are here to give to yourself and to others the love that was once denied. You are here to prove that love is not inherited, it is created. And in doing so, you become the evidence that healing is real. Think about it. Every time you comfort your inner child, every time you choose empathy instead of anger, every time you show compassion to another, you are rewriting generations of pain. You are changing history from within. What once felt like a curse becomes your greatest gift. You become the parent, the friend, the lover, the teacher that the world needs, precisely because you know the cost of a loveless life. So let this be your declaration. You were unloved, yes, but you are not unlovable. You are love itself, learning to remember its own nature. And as you live this truth, the world changes around you. The unloved child becomes the awakened adult. The wound becomes the wisdom. The absence becomes the source. Because the greatest power of love is that it can be born from its own absence. Thanks for looking.